And today's topic is malaria burden, program target, and epidemiological determinants. So I'll be discussing malaria burden, epidemiological determinants, and then program targets. In that manner, we'll go. As you know, the malaria burden, this is the 2020, the latest World Malaria Report. This is a global scenario where they say that around 2029 million cases of malaria in 2019 compared to 2028 million cases in 2018. So there is a static stage, and I'm saying 2019 and 18 and 29 only 1 million cases have dropped in the world, and the estimated number of malaria deaths are around 409 into 40930 next in 2019, and which has increased which was more in 2018. So drop is not so much in during last few years. And the WHO African region continues to carry the disproportionately high share of global malaria burden. Still, today this is a problem area in the world scenario. In 2019, the region was home to around 94% of all malaria cases and deaths. Still, the African countries and sub-Saharan regions are they are contributing the highest malaria burden to the world scenario. And in 2019, 6 countries accounted for approximately half of the all malaria cases worldwide. In these countries, India is not best. But in WHO region of South Asia region and the Eastern Mediterranean and Western Pacific and American are also at risk. Overall, the children of under 5-year age are most vulnerable. And in 2019, they accounted for about 67% of all malaria deaths in the worldwide. So still these under 5 children worldwide, even in Odisha, they are still at risk for malaria infection and malaria complication and malaria deaths. This 2020 malaria report said that India continues to make impressive gains in reduction of malaria burden. That's a great sign for us. In 2018, also it was a remarkable statement by WHO that India has reduced malaria like anything. The decline was very high, and the highest contribution was due to Odisha. So that was a great news for us and great appreciation us. We were applauded by the international agencies and at a WHO level. And Odisha was invited to Mozambique. The World Malaria Report was released at that time, and Odisha name was highlighted. And during last 2 to 3 years reports, Odisha name is mentioned in WHO document. So that is a great encouragement for us that while the malaria cases are dropping in throughout the world, and except few countries, 10 countries, and Odisha contribution is, I can say, the largest contribution in case of India. And that we have seen and we know the data. That is why I am not describing the data of Odisha. But that is and as you see the India map, there is a huge declining, and most of the contribution was given to this declining also by Odisha. This is a malaria map from 2016 and 2019. And you see the eastern belt, in the eastern belt of, that is the eastern region where we are standing. That is the east coast belt, Odisha is a red belt. And now gradually in 2000, that is next years, we found that 2018 and 2020, the picture is coming very encouraging. And from the red belt, we are going to this yellowish belt, except few area like southern Odisha. And this map is very encouraging for us in the context of India. This malaria is always gives a economic burden, and we know that during the independence era, when the malaria control program was launched in India before that in 1953 and 1947, the estimated at that time our population of India was only 36 crores, and the malaria cases were around 7.5 crores at that time, and deaths were around 8 lakh. So it was really at that time, if anybody was asking what is the problem of malaria in India, a problem of public health in India, that was malaria. So as you know, at that time, we have the life longevity was too low because malaria and other infectious diseases, they are taking the toll. And that is why the first program, national program launched in India was the malaria control program. And then other national program came. So malaria was at that time really a problem for India, and not only India, most of the countries were affected, were at risk of this problem. And there, Odisha was also bleeding with malaria. Odisha and the central part of India, northeast, and many other parts of India were bleeding with malaria. And any disease, any fever disease, man, that was taken as malaria. So malaria was giving the economic burden. It has a highly economic burden. And because always from the time immemorial, everybody was saying, even the research papers will find malaria, poverty, and malaria. It's a cycle, socio-economic cycle, and it's an inherent cycle. People say due to malaria there is poverty. Some people they say that due to poverty, malaria prevention activities could not be taken up, and there is malaria. So this cycle is still going on, and we'll find that malaria still is a high burden in the area where the poverty is rampant. So the socio-economic cycle is still prevalent, though malaria has come down in many parts of the world, many parts of our country and in our state. Malaria can strain the national economies, impacting some nations' gross domestic production by as much as estimated 5 to 6%. Countries that managed to reduce malaria over the time had much higher economic growth. Those countries in European countries that historically, if you go to malaria history, you'll find that those countries which could manage malaria even before the nets, saline or insecticide came, the European countries they managed malaria because of by eliminating the breeding sites, and because of development of roads, their education and roads, etc., development went by that, and the breeding sites reduced, and suddenly they found that malaria has come down in many parts of the European countries, and the economic growth was high. And wherever malaria has come down and other development project has come up, we have seen that the domestic product has gone up. And these problems affects the sub-Saharan African most severely because malaria levels are highest there still. But the same relationship with economic growth holds in North African world also. And it is estimated that the around 1940 US dollar million, that is some crores are written, and that is the burden, economic burden. The major burden comes from loss of earning. That is around 75%. Means people having episodic of malaria 2 to 3 times of malaria in a year, they do not go for the work, and that becomes a huge burden on the family. And 24% comes from the treatment cost. Means people go to outside the public health system, private system, even to the Pujari, Gunia, wherever they go, that takes out the money from their pocket. So the huge burden. And malaria discourages investment and tourism because even in a malaria area, if there is a malaria area and there are good areas, scenic places, in Orissa you will find there are very good scenic places like Kandhamal and other places in southern part of Odisha, even northernmost part of the Odisha, and Mayurbhanj, Keonjhar, etc., even Sudargarh. You'll find the scenic places, but the tourism is affected because of people will see in the internet that there is a malaria area. Even people telephone me sometimes. I hear who are in foreign countries. They say, "I'm going to Odisha. Should I take the anti-malarials?" Even coming to Bhubaneswar means as they see the map of Odisha red, they find even Bhubaneswar is malaria season. So you have to convince them, no, no, this is not the malaria area. You can come safely. So people, when they take the message from outside these internet and other places, and they see that the area is malarious, and in their country they see that for malaria, even for one case, they're so worried. They eventually they will take inhibition to come to tourism for tourism. So if we can say that this area is malaria free and it comes out in the internet that these areas are malaria free and very scenic, then people from outside will come for tourism. So that will increase the economic of a state. And in our state, at least, we can get that. And this also affects the land use pattern and crop selection, resulting in suboptimal agricultural production, reduced labor productivity, and impaired learning. So, when we say that malaria annual parasite rate is so high, at the same time, we have to see what is the effect of this on the real burden of the society, economic condition, and the poverty aspects. So because that total becomes the burden of malaria, we can say, on a society, on a community. And then we can see if we can come to the situation, the Orissa situation now, malaria. You have already you are discussing always. We are reviewing on that. So you see the 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. These malaria maps we have seen, and you see there was a red area in 2015-16. You see the red area. That was a worrisome year. 2016 was a worrisome year because we have our interventions since 2008 in a different manner. 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. The intervention was somehow in a different manner, strategic, though we are depending upon the outsiders, outside airline. Also, RDT we got and ASA involvement were there. And there is ups and downs of malaria in these years. We have reduced the deaths due to RDT and ASA involvement, but the caseload could not be reduced up to 2000. I can say reduced somehow, but again upsurge. And in 2013, after 13, 14, 15, there is an increase of malaria cases. The deaths were not so high because of this early diagnosis and complete treatment. The transmission was high. And this 2016 is a remarkable year in case of transmission. And that was a worrisome year for us what to do because at that time we didn't have airline with us and we did only depending upon the old traditional things and which was not able to curb the malaria as we thought. And in 2017, as you know, we did a very remarkable strategic move. And from 2017 onward, we found there is a declining of malaria cases beyond our expectation. So this remarkable declining in 2018-19 that attracted the international agencies, including WHO, and they very openly applauded Odisha. And we marched with that since last 2017, 18, 19, and 20. We are going in the, though little bit ups and downs in 18 and 19, 19, 20, but still we can say that in comparison to 2016, we are at a very high declining stage. as per the existing reporting system. The same thing was happening also earlier, so we cannot, we have to go micro level thing later on, but as a umbrella thing, we can see that there is a drastic reduction from the red belt zone. We are coming now to greener belt, greener regions, and that is also remarkable. And this is still on discussion point at the world level, that Odisha has done something and that should be sustained. And you see this fast graph we presented at different places, that in 2016 the red belt was too high, and 2017 that came down, the big chunk has come down, the green belt. And then 2018, 19, 20, 21, whatever, we see a very declining step overall Odisha. So this everybody is pointing, and though those who are also at one point of time, I know in 2017-18, some people were suspecting that what really Odisha is doing or it is something else. But they verified that the data is not forged. The data is there and it is working. So in that case, we have to see that this burden is still there in southern part of Odisha. And if you go to district wise also, you'll find that there are some specific area where the burden, epidemiological burden is still there. And but I say always, malaria is a complex disease. We cannot stay complacent or satisfied with the present situation, because over the long history of malaria, malaria has always baffled. It has, when there is a little bit negligence over the program, or there may be some other factors which we'll discuss, they come up in all their fangs and nails and again make everything zero. So that is a great hindrance. Today also we are discussing in the morning whether we can believe malaria in this state, because sometimes to outside only we may be saying that okay, it is fine, 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 but the malaria parasite may take a complex movement. Even the vectors may take a complex movement on which our existing instrument and knowledge may not help us to curb them, to really mitigate them. So that is why it's a new it will be a new experience again to deal with this malaria parasite and the malaria vectors. What we did in Odisha, that we know that we have the major intervention is long-lasting insecticidal net in 2017 and replenished in 2020, and we have this asymptomatic malaria elimination under the Daman project, Durgam Anchal Malaria Karan, from which the transmission could not the transmission could be halted in those forested, deep forest area which are unapproachable, and the malaria parasite was persistent. With though if we test, the endemicity will be high, but without fever we are not testing. So those are the belts where the malaria transmission was persistent. And along with that, we also mounted our supportive interventions, others like the ICBCC activities, and also monitoring supervision, and also other such activities which could help us to do both the strategy like early diagnosis, complete treatment, along with community support and the integrated vector control measure, where the airline could help us too much. And people could come in a campaign mode to our help, and that really helped. But such a huge degree, by huge voltage of activities, it cannot be sustained for more time. That is a experience from many parts where malaria action has been done. So there must be now systemic approach to deal with this, to sustain such interventions. We know for a malaria-free world, the 68th World Health Assembly held in 2015 endorsed a bold plan to eliminate 90% of the burden of malaria, both death and infection, by the year 2030, for which India also has declared that by 2030, by 2027 and followed by 3 years, will eliminate malaria. And that is a great, really a dreamland, whether we can do. And Odisha, we were really at that time doubtful to such a declaration whether Odisha can go to that. But when achieving such a result, we are now in a mode that we are able to say that also Odisha joins hand and Odisha can eliminate malaria. That part of courage now we are getting, but still it's a long miles to walk. And we know these epidemiological indicators on which we are banking upon for indicating the malaria elimination strategies or to persuade the activities what we do. All depends upon these indicators now are depending upon. These indicators may be revised in the context of elimination, we don't know. But till now we are depending upon these annual parasite incidents, as you know, number of malaria positive cases per 1,000 population per annum, and also ABR, the annual blood examination rate, the number of blood sample examined per 100 population in a year, and ABR is said taken 10 as the standard till now. And other indicators we know, PF percentage, PB percentage, mixed infection, and number of deaths. Research paper also say that beyond PF and PB, Odisha and many other parts of the country, they also do have PM malaria and P oval, and there is also doubt of Plasmodium knowledge. So if these parasites species will be confirmed fully and their burden can be known, then we may have to strategize the drug policy. Though the vector control measures are same for everything, but then we have to change the thing. And then surveillance will be the major core intervention for everything. The pillar 3, transform malaria surveillance into a core intervention. That will be needed very urgently for many other things. So now with these, from these where we see we'll go to the determinants, because malaria transmission varies from place to place. Whatever incidence of malaria varies indifferently, and these settings depends upon the different geo-ecotypes. And there are areas having high, moderate, and low incidences, and some areas are malaria-free. That we see in the country and also in our state. We found in our state itself there are districts which are very low malaria over the years, from since decades. But whether there is a asymptomatic burden of malaria, we do not know. Because where there is no malaria cases are very low, these districts are highly educated, developed, and where the private setups are more. So we do not have that robust surveillance system to understand whether the malaria cases are there or not, because that most of the population do not come to the public health system, and most they go to the private sector. And these area, as per our surveillance system, is PB area, and also there are literature which say that PB has more asymptomatic cases. We do not know that. But from the existing surveillance system, we say that, oh, these are the low malaria endemic area. But to say elimination of malaria means we have to go to very micro level to see whether these parasites are hiding or malaria cases are not reported. These are very complex cases, because in low malaria endemicity, the support from the public health is low. Because we took a decision in some time when we have given the MTS 180, we took a decision at our state level that the equal number of MTS cannot be given to all districts. We will give more MTS to the high burden districts. Such decisions are taken depending upon the resources available. But for malaria, to eliminate, you need equal resources in all the places. That we have to think how to do in an existing public health system. So, and we find that in some communities, malaria is perennial. Throughout the year, there will be malaria. But in some communities, malaria comes just during the rainy season or post-rainy season. So that these are due to geoecotypes and the breeding and development of the mosquitoes, anopheline mosquitoes. That depends upon those things. Accordingly, if all the areas are known to us where the perennial transmission going on, where the transient transmission going on, then the intervention will be possible. So for these, we have to see what are the key determinants of malaria transmission in different settings. We know this diagram very well, that malaria epidemiological triad. The malaria transmission depend upon the agent, host and environment. And the environment is mostly there. The key element in the environment is the anopheline mosquito, and which needs a temperature, very favorable temperature, and also rainfall and humidity. And also these where the malaria vector climate is good, we see also the parasite develops well, and also the man, the host, they also stay in a very comfortable position. So these are the area where the man, mosquito and parasite, the interaction is very high. And again the population, if you go divide the everything, suppose you go for a host, then host have a genetic makeup, immunological makeup, human characteristic, their education, their age, their income, livelihood, many things comes up here. And if you go to environment also, we'll see that the economic, geoclimatic, political, legal, socio-cultural, public health intervention, etc. And similarly, the vectors having which type of anopheline mosquitoes are there and which type of parasites are there, so that the vector is able to take more intake, and what are the breeding site, whether it is a plain area, whether it is a rivulet area or a jungle forest and having perennial streams, many things come up there. So each component, vector and parasite and the human component, each component have their own subdivisions, and all depend on malaria transmission depends upon all the subdivisions. We cannot neglect all these things. Sometimes we just see the mosquito and the parasite and the man as a totality. We do not subsect the man, we do not subsect the vector, we do not subsect the parasite. Sometimes there lie the hidden burden. That we'll little bit discuss. So when we see about the vector and plasmodia, both vectors and plasmodia are influenced by the temperature I have already, rainfall and relative humidity. And again, all these vary by altitude. If you go to the higher altitude, you'll find that these are not present there. And also the temperature and the number of days with high temperature, number of days with high humidity, all influence the Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium falciparum. They have shortest development cycles, and hence more common than P. ovale and P. malari because of this temperature, which affects their life cycle. And always the development of mosquito vectors, minimum temperature, as you know, is 8 to 10 degrees centigrade, optimum is 25, 27 degrees centigrade, and maximum is 40 degrees centigrade. But this 10 degrees centigrade to 27 degrees centigrade, you see this temperature is, we can say in a normal way, And this is a air conditioned temperature, where the man feels comfortable, and that is a favorable competition, favorable for the mosquito vectors. So there is now there is a, we find for several years we find the climate change, this temperature change, rainfall change, timing is changing. And if I have taken the 4 years gap, the graphs, 2000, 2012, 2016, and then there is a 2020. In 4 year gaps, I have taken the graphs, and you find the high transmission season months are shifting towards the left. Means the vector and parasite dynamism is shifting towards the left. This is because of the climatic factor. And here, if you go traditionally, the intervention, the vector control intervention as per the earlier timing, we may fail. So we have to think how to really address. This is a state average. But if you go to district also, you'll find different picture. If you go to sub-center also, you'll find another picture. So, but we take in our program in an umbrella mode. With timing shifting, we do not take to the very minor local mode. Unless you go for a local mode of timing shifting, perhaps this malaria will buffle us always. And we may not be able to, bringing down from 4.5 lakh cases to 40,000, that is one aspect. From 40,000 to 1,000, that is another aspect. Because here we have to go, we have to ground very locally at the sub-center level, village level. That always in malaria, if you go to any malaria program, any country where the elimination has been taken, that is the way. They cannot go like an umbrella program. Now we have to think very at that granular level thing, whether we can go think for sub center level, means few villages as a cluster, because the climatic change effect will be there. And our vector control measures, if not done timely, I say this is a management aspect now, perhaps we may fail with the malaria transmission halting. I have given both this sheet also. You see, this is also there is a, if you go to analyze in 4 year data, where the same thing, this buffling, which is coming, the shifting of the left, and then if you go as per the old guideline, we may fail. Similarly, if you go to the block, if you go to sub-center, we'll find such situations. So you have to see very in a different eye now. These are the high-risk population always by age. Under 5 children, pregnant women, patient with HIV/AIDS, non-immune migrants. Non-immune migrants means I have given a picture here. Suppose from a person from Puri district that goes to Malkanagiri for any work, business. So it is a non-immune person from malaria, and there is malaria transmission going on. Even small infection can affect this person. So these things happens in when there is a this travel list. We have not taken care of all these things earlier. Now, when we are going towards elimination, these things has to be thought very carefully. But this is a very huge task. Tracking the people at this level, it's a great thing. Age of children, presence of malnutrition, anemia, education of the household, right? Household having electricity, residence type, housing pattern, behavior to sleep under mosquito are important determinants for malaria transmission among children. Sometimes we do not see all these things because those who have worked in these areas where the electricity fails, residence types having bamboo houses, all these things are bamboo walled houses, and people do not have the space to spray. We sometimes those remain as a focus for malaria transmission, and we forget that because we say that okay, IRS has been done in the village, LRS is distributed in the village. Those are umbrella terming, so those will not help now because these determinants are always a problem. For pregnant mother's body is compromised, as we know. That is why in Odisha, perhaps first time in the whole country, we have VHND session where the malaria is addressed. And this I have highlighted in the Government of India level that this is the first time that Odisha has taken this note, and other states have not done that. Perhaps now I don't know. After the CRM visits of different times, perhaps they have given the report, and in some states might have done, but I don't know. And high risk population, also I say these are the I given example for our own state. Suppose in Koraput district there are Kudia. People go for transit for Kudia, people stay there in the agriculture field and unprotected. Sometimes they may take mosquito nets, may not take mosquito net, and there is no space for spraying. People go and come. They can bring the malaria to their own community. And these are not a small population. There are around 20,000 people like that. So 20,000 people, and we cannot track them, that they will remain as a burden, persistent burden. And I have also discussed that there are the inter-district border, inter-block border, interstate borders. These are mainly in forest, hilly terrain area, unapproachable tribal population, and these are generally we neglect somehow because our administrative wings, hands are not tied there. This I have given example of Kandhamal districts where they have this bordering of different districts, and we find these are the places where the transmission is still going on. Whatever you do there, the transmission is going on, and we have we can in an umbrella approach we cannot do all these things. This needs inter-district, inter-block administrative hooks. Even in Malkanagiri and other area was the interstate in Keonjhar, Mayurbhanj, Sundargarh, and Noapada. This needs interstate activities. So sometimes for elimination, these administrative unit, as we say, they have to different, and that is to be said that malaria administrative unit, we can say. In that sense, we have to change the whole strategy. And these migratory population, we do not have any account on that. Sometimes people come like Jajabers, nomadics, and sometimes they come for bricklain work, project work, mining work in different parts. And they are coming from different state or other districts and do not have their mosquito net. They will sleep under a school, in a school, or in a veranda, or in some under the tree, and they may carry malaria from their parts of the habitation, or they may carry malaria from this side. We do not know. But this is the high population, and you see hamlets also 1 to 2 houses in a hilltop, and nobody addresses them. ASA cannot go that. ASA doesn't have. Okay, he will give a telephone call. Sometimes may get the recipient's answer or not. And some areas are near the water bodies, and these are in forests and difficult areas. Malaria always occurs in difficult areas. Difficult means where we do not reach. So these are some of the high risk population that residing, and they will stay as a burden. So, and overall, the influencing factors of malaria transmission, overall, you understand all these things. You see the houses, of these houses, you cannot spray. And if people do not use mosquito nets, so mosquito, and these are in jungle forest area where the fluviatis mosquito is very active. So how can you protect? And these are, but and also we do not have a good surveillance system in this area. Where these problems are there, we do not have a good surveillance system there, and that is the problem. So sometimes these are high endemicity is there, so they will not have fever, they will not complain, they will not come to our place. So public health system has sometimes do not have the eye for that. And these are the project area, dam areas where the contractor will be bringing people, they will be working here, and sometimes they are very unprotected. So all these whatever factor I've written here, you can read them, and those are the major influencer for malaria transmission. And the non-human factor I have already said, these are the climatic changes, developmental projects, displacement, disaster, resistant to anti-malarial drug, resistant to insecticides, low-reach public health facilities, constraint in supply of diagnostic, medicine, and personal protection measures like saline, spray, etc. These are non-human factors. And individual malaria parasite load at the community level, public health surveillance system addressing malaria is low. And suppose all these we see, these are the mainly Sometimes we beyond the common program activity. Sometimes the program doesn't have that clue how to address all these things which happen beyond the public health, existing routine public health system. And the socio-economic determinant for malaria transmission is the paper. There is a paper in Assam where they say that malaria occurrence was higher among participants who had lower incomes, houses and kacha houses and were located at considerable distance from the health sub-center level, facility level. And further knowledge and awareness about malaria, number of mosquito bites per day and use of bed nets were also associated with malaria occurrences. Though they have said that the education level has not given any much role here, but some also say that the literacy level has a role. And although malaria incidence depends on various variables, the study demonstrated, a PASAM study, that those variables related to poverty, poor health infrastructure, and awareness about malaria, and these are most important factors in minimizing the risk of malaria. So this same thing happens because Assam and Odisha, most of men will find the malaria area are mostly similar. So this, if we conduct a study here also, we may find the same thing. And so the challenges are now for malaria elimination. We see that there is a remarkable success we know from 2000 to 2010 in all of the world. And when the malaria comes down, then the epidemiology of malaria in these settings becomes a more complex because again there will be different settings as per the malaria incidences, and sometimes some area may show zero malaria for 2 to 3 years. Then those area may not need a we may distract our focus, and they again sometimes there will outbreak, there will be upsurge. Things may come up like that because we do not know other dimension of malaria where they say that there is a hotspot and whole population scenario. When some population they attract the mosquito and some area they remain as the hot belt of malaria transmission due to many other factors. So during malaria coming down drastically, there are other complexes also. So malaria is increasingly imported in such times caused by plasmodium vivax, and many other things are happening. And malaria elimination, other challenges are that mostly we are depending upon the line now, and sometimes in Odisha we find that line use in the summer season is very low, and we do not know whether tomorrow line the insecticide used may be resistant to the malaria vectors, and also insecticide whether they will be resistant, whether these drugs which are available now will be resistant, we do not know. So we have a very small window period to keep the insecticide available for line and IRS and the medicine chemicals safe. So within, if you cannot fight within few years with this existing instrument, then there may be other problems. There may be problem of resistance and other things. So we may not be able to handle. So that becomes not a Odisha concern. That becomes a world concern now. That what we'll be doing. So now people are working on vaccine also. Vaccine trials are going on, and some vaccines have been already floated. Let us see, but till the vaccine comes, we have to deal with the existing instruments and very judiciously, very optimally. And then the malaria program target in the context of elimination, that achieving intensive control measures in high endemic area. Still there are high endemic area. Overall malaria API has come down, but still there are high endemic area. Here we have to achieve intensive control measures as a market. Intensive control measures means again the airline, IRS, and other which we are not able to do. Those things are also there, but we are not able to do. We are only able to do with the instrument which are available, airline and IRS. Many other parts, though we speak, but we are not able to do. The breeding site elimination, whatever we are doing little bit here and there, that has no meaning for a greater part. Okay. Yes, today we may eliminate some breeding site by putting sands, etc. But what is that percentage? That comes very small. So that is not really helping us now. and ensuring zero indigenous malaria in low endemic areas. Zero indigenous malaria means no malaria from that region, and ensuring that, sustaining that, that is another target, and sustaining zero malaria in transmission status and preventing re-establishment of infection and transmission in zero case reporting areas. These are the major three malaria program targets that we have to see in high endemic area, in low endemic area, in zero malaria area. But to have scientifically, we have to define what is a zero malaria area, what is a zero indigenous area, because unless we have a robust data driving system from different sources and we do not validate with the one existing surveillance system, we cannot declare anything affirmatively that this is that area. So that is a challenge still, and that perhaps in context of malaria elements that has to be addressed. So overall, we have gone beyond 40 minutes perhaps. So I think we have talked something on these burden, determinants, and the program targets. Hopefully, if there are questions, we can discuss. And I am closing the presentation here.